Hello and welcome to the OTB channel. Today I'm going to talk about a bar that I've referred to in a lot of my videos, Polybar. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail and I'm going to focus on how you add a drop-down menu and how you add the functionality to minimize windows to the bar. See you after the intro. Hello and welcome back. I'm going to try and remember and say it this time as the little pop-ups come up. If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, please do so, guys. It would be much appreciated. Just a quick video today. I realised that overall, the last 2.5 years or more that I've been producing videos, I've actually used Polybar on quite a few of the window managers that I've used, but I've never gone into any detail on it, and it's a bar that's certainly worth the additional attention. So without further ado, I'm going to use Fluxbox. I'm going to show you what I've done over the last week, and I'm particularly going to focus in on how to create a Windows list essentially and a drop-down menu. So let's get to it. So for those of you who watched my video last week about Fluxbox, what you're now seeing is my Fluxbox window manager 1 week on. And you can see it looks quite different. I was quite pleased with it when I'd added wallpaper and I'd added a theme and I'd kind of stuffed the bar up to the top. But I don't know, it still had a little bit more work to do with it. And in particular, I wasn't that happy about the bar. I felt that the bar could, I don't know, just be a little bit more beautiful. So I tried a couple of extra bars. I tried Tint 2 to start off with, which I liked and it's quite functional. But then I tried Polybar. Polybar is probably my favourite. I use it on Left WM, i3 and BSPWM already. So I already have my basic configurations here. And what you can see here is essentially my i3 bar. So it was a simple task to actually start it up on Fluxbox and get it ready for this particular window manager. Couple of things I had to do though. First of all, these workspaces over here, I had the i3 module producing those workspaces for me in i3. They clearly weren't going to work in Fluxbox, so I had to do a little bit of fiddling there. And I was also a little bit concerned that Fluxbox, with it being a stacking window manager rather than a tiler, does have the ability to maximize and minimize to a bar. Now, it seemed a shame to waste that functionality. You don't tend to use it that much with a tiler, and I suppose it's because more than anything else, the way that tiling window managers manage multiple displays is very efficient, and I can't say I've ever missed it. But I just felt that I've got the functionality here with key bindings to maximize and minimize windows within Fluxbox, and I would really quite like that. Unfortunately, it's not built in to Polybar, and I think I mentioned that last week. Nevertheless, where I am now, I can launch a window, as you can see. I can easily maximize it. I can easily bring it back, unmaximize it. I can move it around, I can change the size, I can do everything that I want to do really. I just can't minimize it to the bar. So I thought today what I'd do is I'd talk just very briefly about my Polybar configuration and how I set it up. And then I'll talk about how I've actually managed to add, I suppose you'd call it a Windows list on the bar so I can minimize windows to it. And whilst I was at it, I decided to also create a drop-down menu on Polybar. So let's move on and have a look. So let's make a start. Here I am at Polybar's GitHub page. Now, the thing to understand about Polybar, it's a straightforward bar with a system tray built in. It's up to you whether you use the system tray, but nevertheless, it has got one built in. And the key thing about it is it's modular in design. So it allows you to add, and you can see all these different modules that I've got showing in the top of my bar and the workspaces. It allows you to add and customize a whole range of modules. Many of these modules are already built in. You can see here, it's got things like Windows title, Alsa and Pulse audio volume controls, workspace and desk panels, CPU and memory load indicator, and the list goes ever on. So you choose what you're going to show. You can download an example configuration file. Probably best to look at the Arch Wiki for how you do that, which will get you started with some of the most common modules. And I'm pleased to say the Polybar GitHub page now tells you exactly how you're going to, or how you go about installing it. You can, of course, install from source, configure from source, and that was your only option at some point, not that long ago, in Debian and Ubuntu, but I believe Debian and Ubuntu both have it in the repos now. Arch certainly has it in the AUR. Void Linux has it in its repositories. Slackware has it available as a Slack build, which I can confirm builds beautifully, no problem. And you can install it on just about everything that you want, really. Key thing, though, is once you've installed it, which modules are you going to use? Well, on this GitHub page, there's a link there to go to the wiki. And you can see a list of the modules that are built into the system, which are down here. So if I was, for instance, to go to, I don't know, let's just talk about a file system module. What it basically has is the basic settings that you need to configure in your configuration file, paste in basically. And if you want the option to do a fair bit of additional formatting, there's other sections you can put in as well. And pretty much all of the built-in modules work this way. If you're running BSPWM, well, great. It has a workspaces module there that you can paste in to use for these workspaces up here. If you're using i3, it also has an i3 module, as you can see there, with additional formatting. Unfortunately, though, with Fluxbox, there isn't a specific module for these workplaces. But what we can get hold of is something called X Workspaces, which is still in development, which will display your workspaces in any EWMH compatible window. And that's what I'm using, the X Workspaces module. So there's a fair amount you can do, and you get started off with, some pretty basic modules. The key for me, though, is that you're not just stuck with the modules that Polybar has to offer. You can actually write custom scripts and develop your own module as well. And there is a particular page here, a community effort, if you like, of Polybar scripts that has, let's just go into this, literally dozens and dozens of different scripts that you can use if one of these is of interest to you to basically create whatever you want, whatever bling you want to show on your bar. Now, that's all very well. Unfortunately, there is no basic menu, and I wanted to create a Fluxbox menu in my Polybar that was actually on the bar itself. And I wanted to create some windows list so that I could minimize windows to the bar. I wasn't aware of any official or even community-driven attempt to do that. However, during my Google searches, I came across this GitHub page by someone called Tamcar, however you pronounce that, called Polywins, that purported to do exactly that. I will put the link to this particular repo down in my video description. And essentially, his Git repo contains a script that you can use to build a module so that you've got this functionality built in. So I did a Git clone of Polywins, and I started to add that to my Polybar configuration script, which we'll go to now. Right, so what you should see now is my Polybar configuration file. Let me just make it a little bit bigger so that it will show up. So it's a basic configuration file that essentially consists of 3 separate sections. You'll get some of these sections in the standard default configuration that you can download once you install Polybar. The first section is called General Settings, and that, amongst other things, allows you to set all your colours for background, foreground, alerts, etc., etc., and also gives you the option to set margins. Okay, so that's just a short section. But then we go on to the bars that you're going to create. And in this configuration, I've called my first bar main bar -FB. And you can see that there. Now, the way you launch Polybar, you use a launch script usually, and you can find that again on the Arch Wiki. And the command is simply Polybar followed by the name of the bar that you want to launch. So you can have multiple bars in this configuration file that you may well be launching for different window managers, and you just adjust the script to suit. The main bar section, though, contains all the information about which modules you want to display on the left and which modules you want to display on the right. And if you want to put any modules in the center, you can also put them in the center. So all of these ones that you see here, CPU, RAM, hard drive, temperature, sound, brightness, updates, the date, you'll see them all there on the right-hand side. By the way, I had quite a few comments in previous weeks when I've been using Genie that it was too bright. So I've applied a Nord theme to it, so we've toned it down a little. It shouldn't burn your eyes. So your main bar is to set your modules, to also fiddle about with some of the formatting, you know, your margins, the line size, the line colors, whether or not you want a tray. I've actually disabled the system tray myself. I don't actually require that. I found that I've got so used to not using a tray now that it's almost irrelevant. Importantly, though, here you also get the opportunity to define the fonts that you're going to use. Unlike a standard bash script, which would use the pound symbol or the hash symbol to comment something out, you use a semicolon in the Polybar configuration. So that's your bar. I've actually got a couple of bars here. I've got one called an extra -FB bar as well. And what I tend to do is I'll launch a bar on one particular screen or one monitor, and I'll launch a different bar on another monitor, because I may not want exactly the same modules displaying on each bar. For instance, I only need my updates module appearing on my primary screen, so there's little point of having that on the secondary screen. So you get your general section, you get your bar section, and then we get into the modules. And here you simply list the modules, and most of the time it is just a copy-paste job. So you can see my i3 module there, which would display my i3 workstations, worktop, should I say. So that's there, and you can add icons and all sorts of things. It's pretty readable, actually, this, and it's quite long as well, as you can see. But you would only paste it in direct from that Polybar Git repo. When you get to that, I have individual modules. Now, I've got lots of little status scripts developed. As I've said, using DWM, it's been a great experience because I've developed a lot of scripts that output exactly what I want. Therefore, rather than using a predefined or community-developed script, I might as well just use my own scripts. And this is what I do. And you simply create a script and call it whatever you want. I've called this one RAM. The type is always custom script. The exec line, I point it to the script. I set the interval for it to update. The label is what it outputs. And then I can set the format foreground, the format background, and I can also add a prefix. And in this case, you'll see I've added little icons from the Awesome or Nerd Font collection, and you can even choose the color of those icons. And I've got lots of custom scripts down here, all pointing to my script directory. I do have some standard, standard modules that I'm using. For instance, I'm using the built-in date module. I did change it just slightly to change the format. So it was in this, 2nd of April 2022 format. I'm used to having it UK formatted, so that's how I changed it round. But I pretty much use that. I've also just recently added this EWMH module, which is that X workspaces module. Fluxbox doesn't have a module to display your workspaces, so I've pasted this in, and you can see what it's like. You decide what you're going to display. In terms of this, Fluxbox calls all its workspaces workspace 1, workspace 2, workspace 3. And if you don't configure that, rather than just showing up as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you get a big long string, workspace 1, workspace 2, workspace 3, etc. But you can shorten that by using an icon or just a label. So I've just shortened workspace 1 to 1. And 2 and 3 and 4, etc., etc. And if I wanted to use icons instead of numbers, I could easily paste them in as well. You then decide, what are you going to actually display? Are you going to display the workspace name, or are you going to display the thing that you have defined as an icon? So really straightforward. Now, what you may have noticed as we were going along here is I've also now created a module called Polywins. I did a git clone of that repo, and I downloaded the script, and if I just move to that and just make this a little bit bigger, the script is fairly straightforward. It's not actually that long, and you can modify it to some extent. So, for instance, I've changed the active text color on the active window to be in line with my Nord theme, and I've set the inactive text color to be basically the same. You can choose what your separator is. At the moment, it's just a full stop. That was by default, so I haven't really changed that. And everything else I've pretty much left exactly as is. So once I downloaded the script, I just created a custom script module. It's really short. It's as simple as that. And as you can see, I've pointed it to the script. So it's called Polywins. And in order to add it to my Polybar, I just need to decide where I'm going to put it. So let's go for, let's go for the main bar and also the extra bar. I can't remember which way round these are, so let's start off with the main bar. I think I'm going to put this in the centre. So Polywins. We'll see if it turns up in the centre in a minute. And there it is. Polywins has appeared. Up there, it's the active window, so it's green, but I also have OBS running on this. I'm also going to add it to my secondary bar, to the secondary screen, and, Polywins, should I say? Polywins, and I'm going to save that, and Polybar does update in real time. So, that's all there was to that, and I now have a Windows list. So, if I was to, for instance, minimize this, and I've got that tied to a key binding of Super Shift Z, it's now minimized to the bar. OBS is now the active window, which you can't see because it's on my other monitor. But if I was to click on Genie, Genie becomes the active monitor. If I was to launch an Alacrity terminal, well, there you go. The Alacrity terminal is now the active window. I could go back to Genie, or I could get rid of Alacrity. I think that is really, really easy and simple. And it allows me to use the functionality of being able to minimize a window to my Polybar bar. So all good. First things first, I think that works. In terms of the sorts of scripts I have, they're all pretty simple. I put them in a scripts directory in my main Polybar directory. And here, all you've got is my update script, which is showing that, for instance. And it's just running a couple of commands to check for updates from both the AUR and also from the standard Arch repos. And if we just find the update, it gets quite long, this, the update module, which we will find in a second. There you go. There's the update module. Same sort of thing. I've pointed it to the script. That's the exec line. I've set the interval to be 1,000 seconds because I don't want it checking constantly. And 1,000 seconds seemed, a reasonable amount of time to do it. I've set all the colors, and my format prefix is this little set of cross spanners. So all well and good. The next thing, of course, is how do I go about adding a little menu icon? I've got a right-click menu here. I've got my Rofi, of course, but I know a lot of people do like to have a menu on their bar. Well, there's a few ways you can go about this, and essentially it consists of creating an additional module for Polybar. I got the idea for this from Eric Dubois from Arco Linux, who has created a little Polybar menu that uses JG menu, which seems to work quite well. I haven't followed along from that because I felt that I quite like the way I've got the standard Fluxbox menu already. So what would be the point? Why not find some way to get this Fluxbox menu to appear if I click something on the bar? So I'm going to go all the way down to the module that I've created. And the module I've created is this one, xdo menu. For those of you who haven't come across the utility called xdotool, it is superb. What you can actually do is replicate keystrokes or mouse clicks very, very simply. So, for instance, to bring up the menu, I had to create another key binding, which was Super Y. And if I hit Super Y, what will happen is the menu will just come up wherever my mouse happens to be. I know it appears on the right click as well, but for some reason I couldn't get xdotool to kind of replicate the right click. It might be Fluxbox specific, I don't know. So I created this additional key binding. I then created a module. Some of this, including the interval of 120 seconds, is based on what Eric Dubois put in, but the rest of it has pretty much followed my custom script format for all my other things. I've pointed it to a really simple script. And that really simple script is this. It's a straightforward bash script that says, let icon equal little arch icon, pasted direct out of the Nerd Fonts page. And then echo that. So essentially echo that icon. So not a lot to it really. So it's going to echo the icon. Now when I click on that icon that'll appear on the bar, what I want it to do is to perform an action. And I'm going to use xdotool to replicate the keystroke super plus Y. And the format for this is dead simple. xdotool key super plus Y. So the module's already created. I've called it xdo menu. Let's see if we can add it to our bar or one of our bars. So let's go to the main bar. And where should we put it? I think I want to put it immediately after these workspaces. So I'm simply going to type xdo menu and I'm going to click save. And there you go. We now have a little arch menu. You could put it before the workspaces if you want, or you could put it over here. You can put it anywhere you want. And when I click on that, it now brings up the menu. So Polybar is a really flexible, and after you've worked with it a while, a really easy way of getting a nice bar where you can build in whatever functionality you want. And I've got to be honest with you, I'm sort of a DWM guy more than anything else, but I've really enjoyed my time in Fluxbox. And I know all window managers look a bit horrible when you first start, but you can end up with something like this with actually not that much work. Time to have a chat, I think. Right, so that's Polybar. I've got to say, I'm really quite pleased with the way Polybar and Fluxbox have evolved over the last week or so. It now feels like a very usable window manager or environment, if you like, because when we take a window manager and we build it up with our own bits and pieces, we essentially create a desktop environment of our own. And that's what I've been involved in doing. So, yeah, I thought you might be interested to see how progress has gone. And I have to say, I'm really pleased with it. That's all I'm going to really discuss this particular video. It's going to be a short one because the weather looks like improving. And I've got to get this beast over here ready for going out. I've got to get the chain adjusted and so on. And having said that, as the weather is improving, I do have to give you pre-warning that there might not be a video every single week. If it's a lovely day, I'm going to go out on that. But as you know, I will give you as much warning as possible. But guys, other than that, really hope you enjoyed this video. Try Fluxbox by all means. I know if some of you spotted it was using kind of a gig of RAM in my Polybar, that's because I've got OBS open, I had browsers, I had Genie, I had a file manager. For those of you who are interested, it runs at around 300 megs when nothing is running on it. So it's pretty lightweight. So it's a nice bar to try. But anyway, enough said. Thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe. And for all these wonderful people behind me who support my Patreon, thanks so much, guys. It really does help. Hope you have a great weekend, and I may see you next weekend. I may not. Watch this space.